nested try except block. So far we have seen there is a try block and there could be one except block attached to it or maybe multiple except blocks. But sometimes it is required that we have to keep one of the try except block inside another try except block. If that is happening, then this is what we call nested try except block. Now, with nested try except block, we can handle multiple risky operations separately, and we can also provide error handling at different levels. Now, looking to the syntax of it, so this is where we started our try block. This is, we can say, in the outer try block where some code has been written here, and this is our inner try block. And this inner try block also contains a separate risky code. And this is the corresponding except block. So I can say this is the inner try block and this is the inner except block. And it has certain code which need to handle this particular exception happened in the inner try block. Now this is completely, if you look into this portion, this is actually a try except block. But this is a part of another try. Now this try block has its own corresponding except block, and this is what I say outer except block. So this is a set which I can say a try except block, but because it is available within another try block, I say this is a inner try except block. And because this is an outer try block, it has its own corresponding outer except block. Now let's look into how does it work. Now let's imagine there is an exception occurred in the outer try block. So if there is an exception occurring in that outer try block, of course the outer except block is responsible to handle the exception. Now in case the inner try block here, this particular risky code, if at all there is an exception here, then the first and foremost responsibility comes to the corresponding except block, which is called your inner except block. Now if there are two chances over here, now this inner except block may be able to handle this exception or may not be handled. Now let's imagine this except block is able to handle the exception occurred in the inner try block. So then of course the inner except block will execute. And in case the inner except block is unable to handle this exception, then the responsibility comes over the outer except block. So the second scenario you can see here, if exception is raised inside the inner try, then of course the first and foremost is inner except block is responsible. Now if it is unable to handle, then the outer except block is responsible. Now what if both inner and outer except blocks are unable to handle? So that will again simply lead to the abnormal termination of the program. Now let's try to understand this execution process by looking into this simple example. So in this example, you can see we started a try block. Of course, we can say this is an outer try. And we have a message to start with, let's say outer try block started. And this is our inner try block. And what we have done inside this inner try block, we are trying to open a file with the name say data.txt and the mode is read mode. Now there is a message immediately after that, file opened successfully. Now the another line is here I'm trying to call the read method which is going to read the content of this particular file, and whatever content has achieved, okay, that is going to act as a divisor. Now 10 divided by whatever content it has read, and that I'm storing in this result and I'm just printing it. Now there are two except blocks. These both of them are your inner except blocks. One is your zero division error, other one is your value error. Now from here, from this try block. This is the corresponding inner except block, and this is also another inner except block. Now, this entire try and except we have kept within the outer try. Now, this try block has its own corresponding except block, like file not found error, which has some message to be flashed. Now, this is end of the program statement, which is beyond this try except everything. Now, let us look into the various cases based on which how this program is going to behave. Now, let's look into case number 1. Let's imagine this data.txt file which I am opening is available and it contains a valid non-zero number. Let's say I have kept something in this file 2. Suppose I'm keeping 2. Okay. So when this particular program execution begins, of course the outer try block will print this. So as a result, we got outer try block started. Now when it enters the inner try block, this is again successful because this file exists. And hence we get this message also followed by like this is file opened successfully. Now as this file has a valid non-zero number, let's say I thought of 2. So this file holds say some 2. So now this file.read is going to bring this 2, which is actually in text format, which is converted into integer. So I'm getting 2 over here. So 10 by 2 is a normal division. So it's going to give us 5.0. So result is going to carry 5.0. And hence when I'm printing this result value, so result followed by 5.0. So what we have seen so far, neither in outer try block nor in the inner try block here, no exception is found. As a result of which, these except blocks that we have designed for inner as well as outer, they are not going to do any job. As a result, the last statement is end of the program. That's what we are going to get here. Now let's look into the another case here, second case, where say this data.txt file is existing, but the content it holds a 0, right? So now once again what will happen? So the outer try block starts here. So I get outer try block started. Now because this file existing, hence it is successfully opened. So I get this message also, that is file opened successfully. Now because we have a 0 as the content inside this file, so this right hand side, the divisor is going to read 0, and when converted into the integer, I'm going to get 0. So now this looks like 10 by 0. And we understand 10 by 0 leads to 0 division error exception. So as a result, now the control will leave here and it will come down to the inner except block where it is going to match with this exception class. Because this exception class is matching or able to handle, hence we get the message inner except followed by division by 0 error. Now this second exception is not going to work, as well as the outer exception also. So we finally come to the last statement, that is your end of the program. Now let's see another scenario here. Imagine this file is existing, but it contains a non-numeric data. Okay. So now how does it work? So once again, this outer try block will be executing. Okay, outer try block started. Now this file exists, so it is successfully opened. So I get this outer try block, file opened successfully. Now, because this data.txt contains some non-numeric data, let's say we have something like A here. This file contains A. Now, because it is non-numeric, hence when I'm trying to convert it into integer, it is unable to do so. So before that division can occur, this conversion which I'm trying to do, I'm trying to convert this A into integer, which is going to give me a value error exception. So as a result of which, because exception has occurred in this, now the control first come down to the 0 division error except block, but it does not match. So hence it brings the control to the next except block, which is your value error. Hence, this message inner except invalid number in file, that is what I'm going to get. And of course, by the last statement, that is end of the program, is going to be printed. Right. Now going ahead with another sample case or output is, suppose this file what I'm trying to open is not at all available. So if the file is not available, so this exception here, there is an exception that this file is not found. So because this exception is found here, so inside this inner try, so now the control will come down to the inner except block. But this exception is what? File not found error. But we have no classes which is matching with the except. Okay, zero division error, your value error does not match with the type of exception that has raised out of this. So hence, now the inner block or inner try except block is unable to handle the exception. So hence the responsibility comes to the outer try block, outer except block, which is holding file not found error exception class. So hence I get the message outer except file not found. So we started outer try block started. This has given exception which is not being handled by the inner exception blocks. Hence the outer except block is able to handle, and of course end of the program. Now let's look into the last case where, assuming that this file data.txt is existing but it is empty. So we have nothing inside that. So in this case what we will see, so obviously the outer block and try block started, that the first message we are going to get. Because this file exists, hence I am going to get this message also, that is file opened successfully. Now when we come down here, file.read, I do not get anything. So there is an empty. Okay, so we do not get anything. So this is going to result a value error once again. Okay, so as a result, now exception has occurred here. It first brings the control to this inner except block, which is zero division error, but this is not able to handle it. Hence the control comes to the next except block, that is value error, and we get this message, that is your inner except invalid number in the file. And of course we reach the end of the program.